you can explore several passions at once. And maybe at some point you'll have to narrow it down to two or something, but cast a big net and see where your heart calls you. Mark Twain has a quote that I love that says, two most important days in your life are the day you're born and the day you figure out why.
Welcome to An Honorable Profession, a podcast focused on incredibly talented people who've dedicated themselves to public service when their country and communities needed it the most. I'm Ryan Coonerty. Along with Debbie Cox Bultan of the New Deal, I'm lucky enough to be your co-host. The New Deal is an organization that supports the next generation of American leaders. Check out newdealleaders.org to find out more.
In today's episode, I speak with New Dealer, Fort Lauderdale City Commissioner Ben Sorensen. A fascinating guy, Commissioner Sorensen is not only an elected official, but he's a small business owner, a third-generation Presbyterian minister, and a former Navy intelligence officer with 6 different degrees. We talked about the importance of having a growth mindset and being willing to try and fail in government and in life, and how the political party who best understands people's concerns and responds rapidly with real results will be successful in Florida. Tune in to hear him talk about his work in Fort Lauderdale to make it a leader in the ocean economy, and why, when he was first elected, he moved his office to the city's homeless encampment. I hope you enjoy. All right, Commissioner Ben Sorensen, welcome to An Honorable Profession.
Thank you very much. It's great to be here with you.
I'm so excited to meet you. You're relatively new to New Deal, and I've been a fan from afar. So very excited to get to spend some time talking today. I thought that as we talk this week, sometimes it's so hard to cut through the noise of everything. And I love starting these conversations with New Deal leaders on the ground where you are in Florida, just asking, as you're going around your district, what are you hearing from people? What is most on people's minds right now?
Yeah, thanks. Well, thanks again for having me. And, I think in Fort Lauderdale, being a city commissioner here, the big focus is just on the fundamentals. So public safety, infrastructure, affordability, those are the big things that we spend most of our time talking about with residents.
Yeah, when it comes to affordability, is there anything in particular that you hear more than others? I know we hear a lot about housing, groceries, gas, of course, right now. What comes up most for your folks in your city?
Yeah, well, here in Broward County, it's one of the most cost-burdened counties in the country. So when you look at the average salary and then you take the average housing cost and transportation cost, and you put that as a percentage of salary, that percentage is higher than almost anywhere else in the country. So we are constantly working as a city to find ways to help people live in a way that they're still able to provide for their families, get medicine and all those good things, while still attracting businesses and employers to come in here in the city of Fort Lauderdale. So that's constantly one of the challenges that we face. And as a city, we try to innovate, to partner, to find solutions for all of those.
Yeah, let's talk about some of that. I know that from the time you first got elected to the commission, housing, cost of housing, homelessness has been a big focus of yours. Tell me what you're seeing that's working where you guys are.
Yeah, so it started with when I first ran for office as a city commissioner in 2018. There was a big homeless encampment in downtown Fort Lauderdale, about 120, 140 folks living in tents in downtown. And from my perspective, the city just had not done enough and had not led effectively. And so I didn't know all the solutions, but when I was elected, I moved my office from City Hall in Fort Lauderdale down into the encampment. So I had a table and some chairs, and I would just meet there day in and day out, not only with the folks that were in the encampment, but then anyone that wanted to meet with me about city business, whether it was a project they were working on or a permit fee they were having an issue with or a pothole, they'd have to come to the encampment to meet with me. And inevitably, they would say, "Hey, Ben, what is going on here and why are you here?" And I'd say, "Hey, glad you asked. This is a encampment that's not acceptable for us to have in the city because we're not doing enough to support and help these people. And so let's work together." And ultimately what that led to is the city, the county, private companies, individuals, nonprofits all came together. We raised about $4.5 million with wraparound case management support and got all those folks into housing with support. And it's just been a huge success. So that's my template for homelessness and the affordability pieces. We're stronger together, working together, but you got to bring everyone in, you got to calibrate, and then you got to execute quickly towards solutions.
Yeah, I love that you did that. I didn't know that story about opening your office there. I think that's so interesting and smart and powerful. And you said something that's important too, which is I think you said we got to innovate quickly or whatever
Yeah.
word you use, which is I do think that that's kind of what we hear so much from New Deal leaders and other people we talk to around the country is that, people want solutions now, which is not unfair. Actually, a lot of these things have been lingering for a long time. They've been building for a long time. And so it's like, great, you're going to study the issue again. It's like, no, we need solutions right now. And so it's really wonderful to hear what you do with that encampment. Anything else you want to say on the housing affordability piece, maybe that's not necessarily homeless, but just trying to bring some of those prices down that you were talking about for your residents?
Yeah, I mean, so one of the things I'm working with right now on service providers and workforce and affordable housing developers is taking city land and partnering with the developers and service providers to build workforce and affordable housing with the wraparound case management support. And I'm a big believer of fail fast. Like let's innovate, let's try. If this doesn't work, let's adjust and adapt and overcome. So in a fast moving environment, it's okay to be wrong. It's okay to try things that might not work. That'll help get us closer to what will work from a housing affordability standpoint.
Yeah, I love that. I think too often in government, it's like people are afraid to make a mistake because they feel like there's going to be gotcha. And it's like, in what other business or area do you not try things? And like you said, and then if they work great, you double down on them, you triple down on them. If they don't, you say, okay, we tried that, we'll try something else. But I think we've got to allow government to do some experimentation. Obviously it's different with taxpayer dollars. You got to be careful about that experimentation, but you got to be able to innovate. Like you said, innovation takes failure sometimes. So I think that's a really important thing that people don't talk about enough.
Exactly. And one just quick example of that is when I was first elected, we were seeing a lot of homeless individuals enter into our court system for nonviolent misdemeanors, open container, loitering, trespassing, whatever it may be. So then they're put into the traditional court system. They're in process. They might go to jail for a day or two or a week, and then they're back out on the streets. What have we accomplished as a society? In my view, nothing. We've wasted resources. So we got together as a city commissioner and the city commission with our police chief, the county sheriff, the judicial system, and we created for the first time ever in the state of Florida a community court, which is a court specially trained, specially tailored to serve those who are experiencing homelessness. So they come to the court and they're seen by specially trained judges. And the sentencing is not the traditional go to jail for a week or 2 weeks. The sentencing is look around the room. That's your housing provider that you're going to meet with. This is your job trainer you're going to meet with. This is your addiction recovery center where you're going to go. And you're going to do all these things. If you don't, you're going to be held in contempt of court. And you're going to come back weekly to share your progress. And when you graduate from the program, you're going to come back and you're going to be a mentor. We've had hundreds and hundreds of graduates of this program. And that's a type of the innovation that we've really got to support.
Yeah. Oh, I love that so much. Because particularly with homelessness, there's so many different factors that go into that, like you just talked about. So it's the job and the addiction and everything else you need. And it just attacking one of those problems is not going to get you to where you need to go. So I totally love that. I want to talk about something else that you were working on, which I think is super fascinating. I loved when I was reading about this, getting ready for this conversation, which is the ocean economy, which I didn't even know that term actually. And I think that is super fascinating. So you wrote an op-ed co-wrote an op-ed back in November saying that you wanted to make Fort Lauderdale kind of a leader in the ocean economy. What is the ocean economy and why is Fort Lauderdale kind of poised to be a leader here?
Sure, absolutely. The ocean economy is this idea that at Fort Lauderdale as a coastal city, a huge amount of our economic engine is derived from water. It's tourists coming to visit Fort Lauderdale's amazing beaches. It's our thriving marine industry where we service yachts from around the world, to it's our waterways and ecotourism, people coming to the Everglades and so forth to see the amazing natural beauty we have here. And so this is a huge economic driver of our region here in South Florida. So how can we be more intentional on one, protecting our ocean economy, protecting our natural resources, then two, really advocating as a leader in driving forward our ocean economy. And then also thinking about how we can prepare for the ongoing sea level rise and coastal flooding that impacts South Florida and other similar situated areas in the country and in the world. And why not us as a city be the leader in that? And so what I've done in that effort is just bring together all of or many of the key stakeholders, academic institutions, nonprofit organizations, city, county, private entities, say, hey, how can we work together towards this? And it's led to just some amazing wins for us as a city. And they're might be relatively small for other bigger cities, but it's things like have planted 300 mangroves in the past few months. We're creating the first ever in the world, actually, ordinance that would allow for a full rebate of permit fees when people install what's called a living seawall on their property, whether it's a private property, public property. So this is going to be the first in this world that's going to fully reimburse and incentivize that. And these living seawalls allow for more marine life to adhere to them, oysters, fish, so forth, and also lessening the impact of waves as well. So those are just some of the things that we're really trying to work together towards the ocean economy.
I love that. And I have to point this out because I thought it was so cool. You guys at last year appointed your first ever chief waterways officer. So like it's taking the focus, right? It's actually having people for whom this is their job. They're thinking about it. You also have a state office of the ocean now. So I think that, I don't even know that people know that Fort Lauderdale has that kind of all of those canals, the Venice of the United States, if you will. Right. And so I think what you're talking about, certainly our leaders around the country are dealing with the flooding issue across the board, and this resilience question, and trying to partner with people like you were talking about with your seawalls to be part of the solution is really exciting.
Yeah, thanks. And it's a great time. And again, my view is, one, government should work at the speed of business. So I'm a small business owner. I do corporate leadership training and executive coaching. And we want business to look at the government and say, hey, they're working in a similar fashion and with similar urgency as we operate in the private sector world. And then also that we're bringing the best thinking, whether it's public or private sector, to the forefront so that we can innovate and create, and knowing that government doesn't always have all the solutions.
Yeah, I know that transparency and efficiency and engage, and I want to talk later kind of about your personal story, because it's also fascinating how you got into public office. But just on this, staying on this question of kind of transparency and speed for a second, what are you finding is like either the best signals, not from a not working kind of way? Like what are you finding that is actually working to help with the speed question, and also signaling to the business community, others who are looking for more urgent solutions, that you're doing that? I know a lot of people are working on streamlining permitting processes just one example of that. But do you have other things where you're saying like, hey, we're going to do business differently and we're going to show you we're doing it differently that's working for you?
Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, one of the ways is we've just got to communicate more effectively as government leaders, I think, with the business community. So just one of the ways right now that we're working on is there's a big corporation that's interested in having a significant presence here in Fort Lauderdale. So as soon as I heard about that from some of the business leaders that are engaging them, I said, hey, we want to be alongside you. We want to help encourage that company to come here to Fort Lauderdale. So how can we provide incentives? How can we show that we will help them integrate into the community quickly, as fast as possible? We'll help them navigate any red tape they might have to navigate through, to show that we want employers being here who are going to employ our residents and so forth. So that's just one of the ways it's grounded in this idea of open, honest communication. And I think life is too short not to be just candid with each other. Just share with each other what we're doing well, what we could do to improve. How could I improve as a city commissioner? How can I best represent you? Get to it so that I can do a better job getting there quickly.
Yeah, I love that. So let's talk a little bit about your background. We are talking on Easter Monday, actually. You are a third generation Presbyterian minister, among other things. You've also had a long career in the service, in the Navy as an intelligence officer, and now as a chaplain. Talk about let's talk about how you got here first, and I'd love to kind of get your take on where we are politically as a nation. But with that background of service for you personally, what was it that then you decided to pivot some of that into government service?
Yeah. So thanks for the question. So I graduated from college and I moved up to New York City and worked for a couple of big global corporations, which I loved, learned a lot. While I was working for one of them, I started volunteering through Junior Achievement and volunteering in the New York City public schools and teaching leadership skills and business skills to them. And just found like I was really able to make a difference, really help those kids. And I felt called that this was what I was supposed to be doing more of. And so I ultimately left the corporate world and moved back home to Florida and started teaching high school American history and world history and coaching football and soccer, and just loved it. Felt like I was doing what I was called to do, and I felt making a difference in the classroom. And then I said to myself, maybe I can make even a bigger difference. And so I went to Washington, D.C. and worked for Senator Bob Graham on educational policy, just to see, can you have even a bigger impact in addition to being in the classroom? And what I saw Senator Graham doing was doing amazing things as an elected official. And then from that, I started thinking to myself, maybe one day I would love to try to walk in his footsteps, just in this idea of elected office in some form or fashion. And so moved back home to Florida. And by that time, I'd started my small business doing corporate leadership training. And our city commissioner was term limited. And so I knocked on 5,000 doors. And by the slim margin of 55 votes, I was elected. And that's how I got my start.
Amazing. What is it? So you're still serving as a chaplain, are you not?
Yes, I'm a chaplain in the Navy Reserve. So I've been in the Navy going on 19 years now. As you mentioned, I was an intelligence officer for 17 years. And this past year, again, just really felt the calling towards chaplains supporting our sailors and Marines. There's just a big impact that chaplains can have on the mental health and supporting our service members. And so I've been a chaplain now for a year and just loving it.
That's wonderful. So what are your thoughts, maybe again, kind of taking a step back and thinking about where we find ourselves? We've been talking about, how to make government work better, which I think is a really important part of, restoring our faith in democracy, restoring our faith in each other. But we're all up against this, kind of vitriol, if you will, in our politics, and as to what people see as the division. And I'm curious if you find your, that part of your work as being a chaplain and, trying to heal people, bring people together, presumably, kind of how that translates into your work as an elected official, or what your thoughts would be for others in this business.
Yeah, well, one of the key trainings of Navy Chaplain School is you are here to walk alongside that service member, regardless of their faith or no faith, wherever they might be in their spiritual journey or lack of journey. You're there not to evangelize or share one viewpoint, but just to support, honor, and encourage them in their walk. And that's how I view city commission life. My job here is not to be judgmental about, are you doing the right thing, or your idea is good or bad, and how does it compare with mine? But where are you? What's your perspective? And how can I help you and support you in your journey here in the city of Fort Lauderdale? And it's an honor doing that, because in the city of Fort Lauderdale, at least, we aren't partisan elected officials. So we're in our city we're there for everyone, regardless of affiliation or no affiliation. And so I try to take that approach, even when people disagree with a perspective of mine. I still really enjoy engaging with them, because they might have some perspectives or ideas I haven't thought about, which ultimately can make our city even better. So let's be open to all possibilities. And it doesn't mean we're not going to disagree. Yeah, sure, we might disagree periodically, but let's do it in a healthy, positive way.
Yeah. I think it's so important what you're saying about this idea that we've gotten to this place where if you don't agree with me, you're somehow the other or the enemy, or, right. And really, like, relationships don't work that way, let alone democracy, right? I don't agree with my husband on plenty of stuff, right? And I live with him all the time. So I don't know how we got to this place where, like, if you're not with me 100%, somehow you're not on the same team as I am. And have you found any ways through government that have been, I love the idea that you were talking about with engaging by just moving your office somewhere different and engaging with different people there. Are there other ways that you found that, get people more involved in the conversations?
Yeah, I think for me, it's that idea of, hey, we aren't always going to agree, and that's perfectly healthy and fine in any relationship. And so it's going out of your way to engage and treat with respect those individuals who might be on a different side. Because I think it not only shows them that, hey, just because we have a different perspective here doesn't mean I'm going to treat you with any less respect than I would anyone else. And in turn, my hope is that inspires them to treat me the same way when they disagree with me. And so that it kind of lifts the tide, as it were, for all of us. And then I think the last piece is I really try as best I can to make sure that I'm responsive and I'm available to anyone who wants to talk, who has concerns. And so not picking favorites, but ensuring that all have equal access and support to our government and our representatives.
Yeah. Have you ever, this is not meant to be a trick question. So, but I got asked the other day, like the best question in an interview, when you say, do you have any questions, right, for me type of thing. And they were like, is there a time that you changed your mind? They asked me, and I was like, and it's like, wow, that's a great question. And I wonder, I'm going to ask you the question only in the spirit of like, and also in the spirit of, do you feel like in those conversations, you feel is part of the importance of you being open and accessible, also you being transparent about your own thoughts and maybe like things, hey, I came into this idea, like you were saying, I can learn from other people, that maybe you had somebody come to you that you thought you didn't agree with. You're like, hey, that's an excellent point. I'm going to incorporate that into my thinking. Because I think that we don't talk about that enough for elected officials. Of course, that's what you're supposed to be doing. That's the job. But you feel like if I do that, it's a gotcha. Right. You flip-flopped, which is actually completely unhelpful for what you're actually supposed to do in the job, right? Right.
Yeah, absolutely. As I work with private sector folks in my job, my business, one of the core qualities I see that leads to top performance of executives and leaders is those that have a growth mindset. So this idea of they're open to feedback, they're learning to innovate, they're open to growth and change and improving and developing over time. And so I think the same, it should be true for us as government leaders is, are we willing to say, hey, we might have been wrong. We now have a different perspective. Now we're going to be smarter and more informed. And for me, that has definitely, I feel like I've grown and improved over the time in elected office. And in large part, not because of my own thinking, but because of the thinking and perspectives of other people who have shared insights and ideas that I never considered or that I discounted earlier. And now I really understand more fully as they've articulated more to me. So that's part, I think, of what we're all called to do, whatever we're doing in life, is are we developing and encouraging a growth mindset in ourselves and in others?
Yeah, I love that so much. I think I can spend a lot of time on that. I love that. Well, I think this is something else that you've done, which I find fascinating, and it kind of goes straight to the point of the heart of the growth mindset. You have 6 degrees, I think. Which is kind of amazing, right? It includes a JD, a master's, a doctorate in divinity, I think. Is that part of your thinking about kind of continuing to learn and incorporate that into your life? Or why in the world do you have 6 degrees?
Yeah. I'd say one, I'm going to blame my genes for that because my dad got 5 degrees, and so I guess it was kind of instilled in me.
Yeah, it was a competition. You beat him.
I don't know what it is. I definitely don't think I was trying to beat him out, but I guess I did, and at least in degrees. But my parents both, I grew up in a family where academics was always important, and I was never a straight A student, but they really valued learning and growth and development. And so the world is such a fascinating place to me. I mean, there's just so many interesting people. There's so many innovative thinkers. There's so many topics that are so fascinating to me. And so what I've done as I've worked in different jobs is I've gotten degrees as I've been working just because I've been so interested in sharpening my mind and learning more. And so that's kind of where it's led me to get those degrees. And I also really encourage folks when I'm talking to younger people, especially, you don't have to just pick one thing that you do in your life. You can explore several passions at once. And maybe at some point you'll have to narrow it down to 2 or something, but cast a big net and see where your heart calls you. Mark Twain has a quote that I love that says, 2 most important days in your life are the day you're born and the day you figure out why. So
I've never heard that quote. That's great.
So what's our why? And Simon Sinek obviously writes great material on that as well. But what's your why? And maybe your why is a couple different things or 3 or 4 things all at once, and that's okay. In fact, I'd encourage, hey, maybe that's a healthy thing.
Yeah. Well, and I kind of feel like what you're saying is even more important now with the changing of everything, right? I mean, everything is changing, whether it's the climate we were talking about earlier or AI, or like there's so much uncertainty in the world, and kind of having that belief that you can go out and find your passion, and it may be, it's not a linear thing. Actually, there may be opportunities we don't even know are going to exist in 10 years, or there might be things that you thought you were going to do now that don't exist anymore. And so I kind of feel like having that foundation of learning, being curious about learning and passionate about things is probably the key to, resiliency and success in the constantly changing world. Don't you think?
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I think I believe that figuring out what you don't want to do is as important as figuring out what you do want to do. So even if it's, gosh, that is not what I want to do, hey, you're a step closer to figuring out what you do want to do. And growing up, I had a great opportunity to have a couple different internships as I was growing up. And so that's another innovative program we started here in the city of Fort Lauderdale is partnering with our young people who might not have the exposure to different jobs that they might be interested in. And so what we've started is a one-day internship program for those high school students to say, basically what we ask them is, if you could have any job in the world, what would it be? And they'll tell us. And then what we do is partner them with that profession for a day to get a sense, is this something they do want to do, or do they not want to do it? Or if they do want to do it, what are the next steps? And it's just led to some really fascinating job growth discussions and opportunities. We did it the other day, and we had 3 teenagers who thought policing was never what they wanted to do, but they wanted to try it. And they're signed up for a police explorers program, and they want to progress towards academy and so forth. So let's cast a big net here.
I love that. Is that open to all high school students? And are you guys running that program? Or are you part of it?
Yeah, we're partnering. So it was just me and the Boys and Girls Club of Broward County. And I just said, hey, would you all be willing to partner with us on this and create this one-day internship program? And they said, absolutely, love to do it. And so that's where it started.
I love that. Before I let you go, I would be remiss if not to turn to politics just for a minute, because we are in an election year. You guys have a couple big races on the docket, the governor's race, U.S. Senate race. You guys are in the middle of talking about redistricting mid-decade, like a lot of states are. What's your take on kind of where things stand right now? How do you feel like Democrats are faring in terms of our brand and our outlook as we head into November?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's shifted. I think it's definitely shifted, at least here in the state of Florida. And so I think you're seeing more competitive races, and some Democrats have won seats that were not projected a year or two ago that they would win. So I think the positive is you have much more engagement on both sides, and I think it's an opportunity. Who can share the best understanding of what people are going through and then provide real solutions, again, towards that public safety, infrastructure, affordability, your day in, day out lives. And I think if we continue to do that and really message towards what matters to people, I think we're going to be very successful going forward.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much, Commissioner, for spending some time with me today. I really enjoyed our conversation. I think this growth mindset and, being willing to fail and try things, like I'm just, we gotta have a sense of urgency to end where you just ended, which is, how are we going to really respond to people, both in understanding how they're feeling, but also delivering some real solutions. So thank you for all you're doing to do that in Fort Lauderdale. We're really grateful.
Yeah. Well, thank you to you, and thank you for your leadership in NewDEAL, and thank you for the time.
Absolutely. Thank you.
An Honorable Profession is a NewDEAL Leaders podcast. And because we keep things honorable, no tax dollars were used in the making of this podcast.
This podcast is part of the Democracy Group.